history nerd in me cannot resist to share this cool new historical marker that came up here in Leavenworth County. So I wanted to chat a little bit about the Lansing man and the little boy's jaw that was found. And a lot of the information that I'm about to give to you is either from Wikipedia, from an article in the New York Times in 1902, and from an article written in the Scientific American in 1902, as well as a website called wikisource.org. And lastly, from an article in 2004 by a gentleman named Carl King, and the update to that article in 2010. That monument marker that I was at, that particular site was put on the National Record of Historic Places in 1972. If you can do math, that's 50 years ago. 50 years in the making to get that plaque erected and to make a nice little turnoff for people to park and view. You know me, I'm huge in history and not forgetting things, and I just feel like it's very, very important that doesn't get forgotten. You'll find out more about that at the end of the video. First of all, kudos to the Lansing Historical Society here in Lansing, Kansas for seeing this through and for getting the whole community excited about history. Below I will put a link to their Facebook page. If you make it to Lansing, if you come to Leavenworth or Lansing, Kansas, it's right in front of the big prison in Lansing, and it's an old train station that got moved there. It's a really cool place to visit. You should go visit it. A lot of good information in there. And if you're a history nerd like me and you're looking for a fun little museum to visit, that's the one. I grew up like a block from there. I love that little area of town. So about the Lansing man. It was February 20th, 1902, when Martin Kincannon was digging a tunnel to store fruit in underneath his property. And as he was digging, he came across a skull and a couple of bones and a jawbone. One article I read said that the remains are found 20 feet beneath undisturbed silt, and it looked like perhaps that there was a suggestion of intentional burial. Not at first, though. Excavation began by the Bureau of American Ethnology. Say that 5 times fast. The site was visited by many other archaeologists and geologists after this discovery. Remains were located 20 feet beneath undisturbed deposits, and the ground was dated back to between 10,000 and 35,000 years ago, predating the last ice age. The skull structures are identical to that of Native Americans that inhabited this area in Kansas along the Missouri River. Some controversy arose as to the age of the remains. Differing factors of time and science changed the data. Geologically, this was during the glacial period. If you don't know a lot about this corner of Kansas that I'm in, it was formed by a glacier. Rolling hills, beautiful valleys. It's not as flat as you think here in Kansas. But at that time, humans were not known to inhabit this area. Closer examination of the skull brought to light that from a morphological standpoint, it was very unlikely to be from the glacial period. Skeletons aren't always as old as the earth that they're discovered in, right? It was finally in 1973 when more study was done on the remains, and carbon-14 testing was able to give probably a more appropriate date. After testing on the lower limbs, it was decided that possibly these remains came from around 3579 BC, which is the early Middle Archaic period. Despite this info, making the Lansing man much younger than originally thought, the remains are still the oldest human remains ever found in Kansas. Currently, per Wikipedia, the remains belong to a curator of the Kansas City Museum, Mr. M.C. Long, and he had the remains sent to the United States National Museum. That is where the little article from Carl King comes in. First, let's read the title of the article. Lansing Man, once a hoax, always a hoax, even after the paradigm shifts. Carl King, September 2004. He talks about other discoveries that maybe were hoaxes in time, in history. We're not here to talk about that. What caught my attention was the postscript that he put after his little thesis. And it says, postscript, December 10th, 2010. I've been meaning to update this account for several years now to mention that I was contacted by a descendant of the Kincannons. She was unaware of some details or the fact that the Lansing Man was formerly regarded as a hoax. And this is the email that she sent him December 2004. My great-grandfather was Martin Cannon. His sons Joseph and Michael discovered the skeleton when digging a new fruit cellar. I only know the dates from books and such. According to the article in the Topeka Capital newspaper on September 21st, 2002, a skeleton was discovered February 20th, 1902. The Smithsonian still has one of the bones. About 1990, my mother and I visited the director of the Museum of Natural History, Mr. Richard Smith, who was initially unable to find the bones, and subsequently he found them lying in a bookcase in an office. Part of the jaw, left side I believe, and skull. He said there should have been a thigh or leg bone as well, but he did find most of them. He further stated that they no longer used the Lansing Man for research, but they did not wish to give him up because they may wish to use him in the future. In January 2001, I emailed the museum asking if they would turn the bones over to a new museum in Lansing, Kansas. David Hunt, speaking for the Department of Anthropology at the National Museum of Natural History, said they have only the cranial vault and are using it for a recent resurgence in reanalysis of early human remains in the US and North America. I have never seen the ones held by the university. I have heard that they were lost. But Mr. Hunt said that the remains at the University of Kansas were used to perform carbon dating, the C14 dating, in 1968, and that the resulting analyses found the remains to date between 2850 and 5100 BC, the average being about 3700 BC. I assume you're the author of the article. I don't know your credentials for writing an article or where it was published other than the web. Would you provide me with this information? I'd like to keep it with a copy of article for my genealogy files. Thanks. Signed, a descendant of Mr. Kincannon. Now, I'm big into genealogy. I respect that she wants to keep track of this for future generations in her family. I think it's interesting that the Lansing Man was perhaps regarded as a hoax. I also think it's interesting to know a little bit more about the story of how he was found. And I think it's very sad that they've been so irresponsible with the remains that were given to them for study. But I love a good little bit of local history and local lore and legend. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around that long ago. So it's pretty exciting that they are marking the site and declaring it historical, and that we can stop and we can visit it and think about the life that maybe this man and this young child led 7,000 years ago. That is my vlog for today. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun learning about this man too. Right here I'll insert some pictures between Wikipedia, the Scientific American, and Wikisource. I found these photos. And it is here that I would like to insert a little bit of a disclaimer. This is for entertainment and my own personal quest of history. I may not give proper credit in this video or even in the description of the video below, but I tried to reference all of the places that I went to look. You can learn more about this on Wikipedia. Google the Lansing man, Google the Lansing skeleton, Google Lansing remains 1902, and you can do your own little research. You might even find some things that I haven't had time to look for. Please do not sue Cassie so sassy. She is poor, has nothing, and considers history her hobby. I do want to thank you for watching. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to talk about these flowers.